in Mago Reddit. Today's story is...
My husband seemed like the perfect man for 5 years, until our son was born and I discovered his true face, the sign that made me run away at midnight. Lately, I have been contemplating the possibility of divorcing my husband, to whom I have been married for 3 years, due to the difficulties we have faced, especially after the birth of our son Jason. My husband, 32M, and I, 29F, have shared 5 years together, and during our courtship, he was attentive and understanding. I loved that we both wanted to start a family, something I had always wanted. Last year we started trying to conceive, and we managed to do it without any problems. Everything seemed to be going well until I discovered I was pregnant. From then on, I noticed strange changes in his behavior, mainly because he was reluctant to make any lifestyle adjustments to adapt to my pregnancy. Although they were apparently small issues, I found them quite inconsiderate. He knew that I valued keeping our house tidy, and before I became pregnant, his tendency towards disorder even seemed like an endearing trait to me. However, with the pregnancy, it became increasingly difficult for me to clean up after him. I constantly had to remind him to pick up his clothes, dishes, and wrappers scattered around the house, but he never seemed to take my requests seriously. We used to divide the housework equally, but as my pregnancy progressed, I experienced greater tiredness and discomfort, and needed more rest, something that even the doctors had recommended. Despite this, he insisted on maintaining the same equal division of labor, ignoring my explanations about how difficult it had become for me. Although these issues seemed insignificant, they caused numerous arguments between us. I was hopeful that his attitude would change after the birth of the baby, but I was greatly disappointed. 2 months have passed since the birth, and he continues to be just as inconsiderate. After the birth, he has shown no sign of change and persists in his old habits. Surprisingly, nothing in his life seems to have altered with the arrival of his son. I find this very strange because it is not only my baby, it is also his, but I see no effort on his part to assume parental responsibilities. I take care of absolutely everything related to the baby, and at the moment it is manageable because I am on maternity leave. However, in a few weeks I will have to return to work, and he does not help at all. He is always too tired or simply does not feel like it, and he only interacts with the baby when he wants to play or show it to family and friends who visit us. I feel resentful of the way he treats me. Despite everything, I have continued to tolerate the situation in the hope that it would change. However, after the recent incident, I really doubt that I can continue to wait. To put it into context, my father has been unwell for the last few months. He lives quite far away, and I really wanted to be there after the birth of the baby. Unfortunately, his health prevented him from visiting us, so I decided to go and see him with my husband and the baby, planning to make a full trip as the journey by car takes 7 hours. I thought it would be nice to take a road trip and have a little family getaway. I proposed this plan to my husband 2 weeks ago, and he agreed, showing interest. I informed my father, and we began the preparations. But the night before we were due to leave, he simply came back from work and told me that he wouldn't be able to come with us because one of his friends had returned to the city and they were organizing a boys' outing for that weekend. He mentioned that his friend would only be visiting for a week and that we could visit my father the following weekend. By then, I was already quite annoyed with him and I stood my ground. I explained that this was a priority for me and that, for once, instead of being so inconsiderate, he should think about my needs. I didn't want to drive alone because I was constantly feeling exhausted and I didn't want to take that risk. I needed him to accompany me. However, he seemed indifferent to my concerns and continued to argue, which led to a big fight. He slept in the guest room, and when I woke up the next morning, he was already gone. He left a note on the refrigerator saying that he had gone with his friends and that we could talk about it when he got back. I knew he would be away all weekend, but I still tried to get in touch by phone and text, to no avail. I had never experienced so much anger in my life, and that was my breaking point. I packed a few belongings enough for a few days, took my son with his things, and asked a friend to take us to my father's house. I had promised to visit him, and I still hadn't met his grandson. Besides, I needed to get away from home for a while. I have been staying with my father during these days, and I have told him about the whole situation. He thinks I have already tolerated enough. Even after the weekend, when Jason finally tried to contact me after returning home to find it empty, I decided to stay with my father. I told him on the phone that I needed to distance myself from him temporarily. I explained that after everything that had happened, it was no longer just about the canceled trip, but about his general behavior, and I wasn't sure I could go on like this. I told him that I needed time and space to clear my thoughts and that, if I didn't feel we could finally solve our problems, I would consult a lawyer to end our marriage. At that moment, I think he finally understood the gravity of the situation and began to beg me to return. However, at the same time, he tried to make me feel as if I was exaggerating. It was confusing because, in the same conversation, he apologized to me while suggesting that I was taking the matter too far, insisting that we could resolve our problems without so much drama. I've been thinking about this, and I'm not sure if I'm exaggerating the problem. Am I the one in the wrong for proposing to end our marriage because my husband decided to cancel a trip to my father's house to go out with his friends for the weekend? Editor's note: I did not specifically mention my father's medical condition because I wanted to maintain some privacy. But since many are asking, he suffers from osteoarthritis, and in recent months has experienced several episodes of inflammation. We felt it would not be wise for him to make such a long trip, as 7 hours by car or bus would be too much for his condition, which is why he was unable to visit us. As for whether Jason tried to contact me during his trip, he did not. I tried to get in touch with him several times while I was at my father's house over the weekend, but he completely ignored me, without even calling to ask about our son. I think I have the right to be angry with him now. Obviously, I hate the idea of filing for divorce because I love him deeply, but I don't like how he has been treating me, and right now my priority is my son and I. I would like to work things out with him, but his current attitude is very discouraging. Update 1. Hello, it's been a week since I've been at my father's house. Initially, I planned to stay only a few days, but I will return home tomorrow because I understand that I can't run away from the problem hoping it will go away. At the end of the day, I need to confront Jason, talk about what has been happening, and determine what we can do about it. He has tried to contact me incessantly during this last week because I think he has finally realized that he made a serious mistake and does not want to lose me. At first, he was trying to make me feel guilty about my behavior, suggesting that I was exaggerating. However, in the last few days, he seems genuinely desperate for us to reconcile. I have been quite cold and distant because I don't think I have completely forgiven him yet. In fact, I don't think I have forgiven him at all. I am not clear about my feelings regarding our current situation, but I am sure that I will not be able to make a decision until I talk to him in person and try to sort things out at least once. I talked to my father about it, and most of the comments also suggested the same thing, that I should talk to him and try to find a solution. I am deeply grateful to those who assured me that I am not the one in the wrong in this situation, because for a while I really questioned my sanity. Anyway, I will go back home to talk to Jason and see how our situation evolves. Wish me luck. Update 2. Hi everyone. It's been 3 days since my last update. For the last 2 days I've been at home and I finally managed to talk to Jason. This is going to be a long update, I'll just warn you from the start. Getting to the point, I will start by relating what happened when I finally returned home. A friend had taken me to my father's house, and this time she also took me back. I could have called Jason, but at that moment, I didn't consider it appropriate for me to do so, and he wasn't expecting my return. I hadn't told him when I would be back, so he was quite surprised when I walked in the door. He was sitting on the sofa watching a game on TV, but he turned it off straight away and turned his full attention to me. It was nice because it had been a long time since something like that had happened. Normally, he would just get on with what he was doing, and this kind of attentive behavior had practically disappeared a few months after we started living together. At the time, I thought that maybe if he made more of an effort, we could solve our problems, but as soon as he started talking, I lost that feeling. Even though he had been desperate to get me back in the days before, as soon as I returned, he started taking me for granted again. He didn't apologize when he first saw me. He just turned off the TV and immediately started lecturing me about how he didn't expect this kind of behavior from me. He told me that I had been impulsive, selfish, and, worst of all, extremely inconsiderate to him. He started explaining to me that he had been very worried over the last few days, and that's why he had been begging me to come back. But now that I had finally returned, he felt he could be completely honest with me without the risk of me leaving again and trying to avoid the problem. I didn't really understand his objective, because his behavior in person was completely different to how he had communicated by text message over the previous few days. I was stunned and silent for the first few minutes while he was talking. He was basically justifying himself. He said that he didn't get to see his friends very often and that they were his schoolmates scattered all over the world. They rarely had the opportunity to get together, but on this occasion, everyone's schedules coincided. He told me that it was very inconsiderate and selfish of me not to let him have fun for once. He also mentioned that my behavior made him fear that I had become too emotional and hormonal after the pregnancy, because apparently I was not in control of my emotions and acted impulsively to get back at him without considering how it would affect our marriage. I was surprised by the way he spoke to me because, considering how he had communicated in the previous days, I felt as if a completely different person was in front of me. When I finally managed to speak, I told him that I had clearly made a mistake in returning so soon, and an even bigger mistake in thinking we could resolve our problems, because he didn't deserve it. In his mind, he was clearly the victim, and he refused to consider that I had put myself under a lot of pressure. I was the villain, and he was the one who suffered. It couldn't be any other way, because, obviously, I made him feel guilty for going on that trip. But it was very convenient and easy for him to ignore that I had been forced to do all the housework for months, and not just the housework, but also the childcare, without bothering to help me. I told him that he had deeply disappointed me as a father, and that I no longer planned to continue with him because, although I am married, I really feel like a single mother at the moment. I have had this feeling for several months, and I have given him multiple chances to change. But he doesn't seem to care. Even recently, it wasn't just about the canceled trip. If he had been helping me regularly and had only asked for a short break to go out with his friends, I wouldn't have had a problem. We all deserve a break, and I would have understood. The problem was that not only was he not helping me, but he was also going back on his word. It was an accumulation of incidents that provoked my reaction, and if he couldn't understand that, I didn't know what else to say to him. I told him that he had been extremely selfish, and that I couldn't deal with him at that moment. I already had my bags with me, so I was about to leave again. But then he started telling me that I couldn't just run away from the situation again, and that if I had a problem with him, I should talk to him directly and let him know. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to guess anything and, therefore, wouldn't be able to solve anything. At that moment, I was quite exhausted because I had been traveling with a baby, which is not easy. But even so, I felt I had to confront the situation and talk to him so that at least he would understand exactly what his mistake was. I continued the conversation by explaining to him that I had mentioned several times my displeasure with the way he behaved and treated me and our son. Even now, he acted as if he were hearing this for the first time. It seemed like he never paid attention to what I said, which was extremely frustrating for me. I made it clear to him that I wasn't running away from the problem, but facing it head-on by staying away from him because I was fed up. I couldn't keep giving him more chances and allow him to repeatedly disappoint me. I then turned to leave once again, but he quickly blocked my path, standing between me and the door. He explained that I needed to understand that he, too, was really exhausted from work and other responsibilities, and that I was not the only person putting in the effort. He acknowledged that I took care of all the household chores and looked after the baby, but he also had to work overtime to generate more income. Therefore, I should also be more understanding of that. By then, his tone had changed. He was more polite and sounded desperate again. But I didn't want to get more involved with him because, although he was right about his overtime, it was practically insignificant compared to my responsibilities. I didn't have a single moment of rest from the time I woke up until I went to bed. And even after sleeping, sometimes I had to get up for the nighttime feedings of the baby. He never helped me with that either. I didn't think it was fair for him to complain and compare our situations. We had discussed this before, and I had told him that I would much prefer his help at home to his overtime at work, especially considering that in a few weeks I would be going back to work too. We had savings, and I was receiving a payment during my maternity leave, so I didn't understand why he was trying so hard to increase our income. He had done the maths, and we could support ourselves adequately with our current income, so I would have preferred his help at home rather than more work outside. When I raised this with him, we started arguing again. I didn't want to stay there arguing with him, so I just pushed him away, got in the car, and started driving. He tried to stop me, shouting at me not to leave and that I needed to stay to sort things out, but I was fed up, exhausted both mentally and physically. I needed to get away from him for a while. Besides, this whole interaction had left a very negative impression on me. After driving for a while, I decided to stay at a friend's house, the same one who had taken me to my father's house. We are very close, one of my best friends since high school. When I told her what had happened, she assured me that I could stay with her for as long as I needed to, so that's where I am now. I have blocked Jason because I really don't want to talk to him, but I did let him know where I was in case he wanted to see his son, because I have no right to stop him, at least not legally at the moment. I don't plan to use my son as a weapon against him either. I don't think that would benefit either of us. All I want is a clean break, so I will consult a lawyer as soon as possible to finalize everything. I have done everything possible with him. I have tried to be extremely patient, but he just doesn't seem to understand. He doesn't comprehend, he doesn't appreciate me, he doesn't value me. And I cannot spend the rest of my life with a man like that. Being a single mother, despite being married to a perfectly capable and competent man, and despite being perfectly capable, he chooses to use his incompetence as a weapon so that I end up doing more work. And yet he complains about how hard he has to work at the office. I don't think it's fair, and I'm fed up with this situation. Update 3. Hi all. I consulted a lawyer and filed for divorce. I'm currently still staying with my friend, but I'm looking for an apartment of my own. Although I might stop looking soon, because my friend insists that I stay with her. I would just have to split the living expenses, that's all. But she thinks it would be beneficial for me to stay there, so I could help her with the baby too. She thinks I might need a break now. She's a wonderful person, and I really appreciate the gesture. I'll probably accept her offer. Besides, she works from home, and honestly, I think this situation would be good for her too. A couple of weeks ago, she ended her 6-year relationship because her boyfriend had been unfaithful. I think this situation will serve as a suitable distraction for both of us. We'll be able to overcome our respective difficulties by supporting each other. Jason recently received the divorce papers and didn't really know what to expect from him. Fortunately, it took him a couple of days to respond. The terms of my petition are quite fair, so he agreed to everything. I think he has simply resigned himself to the current situation. He hasn't tried to contact me or come to see our son, even though he knows where I am. I sent him that information before blocking him, but he doesn't seem to care. In any case, it's not relevant because we've also drawn up a custody agreement for our son. I can keep him with me most of the week while he can have him at weekends, at least until he's a little older. At the moment, I feel it is better for the baby to spend more time with me because I am more familiar with his needs. Due to the limited time Jason has spent with the baby, he may need to adjust gradually. So far, he seems to have no problems with this arrangement, so we will proceed in this way. It won't be easy. I'm really very sad about the situation, but there's not much else we can do about it. I miss him deeply. I've been crying myself to sleep for a few days now, but I know I must be strong for the sake of my son's well-being. The life I've been leading is not what I wanted for myself or for him. So now, whatever it takes to have a better life, I'll do it. Update 4. Hi. It's been a couple of months since I filed for divorce, and a few days ago, it was officially finalized. Jason and I have had very limited interactions in the last few months since I filed for divorce, and they have been quite cold and uncomfortable. After the divorce was finalized, we met one last time. He told me that he was truly sorry for what had happened and that he deeply regretted his behavior. However, he still maintained that we could have worked things out and perhaps saved our marriage. I didn't want to argue with him, especially when it was all over, so I just nodded. But I really know that nothing could have been fixed at that point. The truth is, I tried my best. He couldn't see that I was constantly exhausted, angry, annoyed, and hurt by his actions, and he didn't seem to care. In a situation like that, I really don't think I could have tried any harder. I also needed to consider my own well-being and prioritize my mental health. That's why I decided to walk away. I understand that he probably doesn't share this perspective. He probably thinks I gave up too easily. He's entitled to his opinion, but I know the effort I put in, and that's enough for me. Update 5. Hi everyone. It's been about 6 months since my divorce was finalized, and I'm feeling much better now. Almost a year ago, I was deeply unhappy in my marriage, but now both Jason and I have improved considerably. I guess at some point, we just stopped understanding each other like we used to. I'm glad I filed for divorce because I don't think we would have been happy together. He's seeing someone new now. I thought it would bother me, but surprisingly, it doesn't. It's not a serious relationship, but he asked me if I would introduce this woman to our son in a few months. I'm considering it. Dating is off the agenda for now. I'm focusing exclusively on work and my son. I recently moved into a new apartment, much bigger than usual. I needed this space because I decided that my father could move in with me. He can also help me with my son, which is convenient. We will split the rent between the two of us. Jason and I see each other at weekends during our son's drop-offs and pickups, and we have a cordial relationship. My friend also visits me frequently during the week. With my father's move in, I feel quite satisfied with my life at the moment.